Hello, I'm Jeff Tennant. Trading is closed on Monday, August 25th, 2014. As usual, let's first review the calls from over the weekend. I said that unless we had a gap under Friday's low, which didn't happen, that we should see higher prices, which we did. Called for a change in trend around 11:30 Eastern Time, and that worked. I said the chances were at least 2 out of 3 that change in trend would be a low, but it turned out to be a high. We'll come back to this chart in a minute because what we usually do next to see how the mejt system fared. Early in the day it said ultimately lower prices would print, which they did. The thick lines are the target prices. It said that higher and lower prices would print. They did, but the minimums, as indicated by the white dots, were so close to the time and price at which the target was set that if all one had was the mejt system to work with, it would be hard to justify making a trade. We don't always stop at the minimums, and usually when higher and lower prices are indicated, the market tends to be wishy-washy. That's what happened here. This lower line turned out to be resistance in the afternoon. It said the rally here was a false move, gives us a target of 1995.95, most likely to print tomorrow. Well, that's pretty close to where we closed, and the market's hitting new all-time highs. Is this all that we have in store for us, 1995.95? Step 3 is when we look at other things. This pattern today is pretty much the opposite of what we saw on Friday. On Friday we had a new low. We had a gap down rather, a low followed by a lower low, and at the close we couldn't hold either of those lows. Unless we have a gap under this, that's usually positive. Today we have the opposite, a gap up, a higher high, and inability to close over either of those highs, plus we actually closed under this consolidation. So unless we have a gap over today's high, one would anticipate having lower prices tomorrow. There are some other things in this chart. This is a pattern which tends to start out high and drop throughout the day. When the afternoon drop can't take out the mid and day low, it's usually positive unless we have a gap under that low. Windows 8's playing games with me here. So we have one thing that says unless we gap over the high, we should trade lower, and the other that says unless we gap under the low, we should trade higher. So based on that, I anticipate a gap tomorrow outside of today's range. This was all supposed to be pretty easy because we have a pattern which I said should lead to 13 blue bars of countdown on the daily chart. But that just means they have to print before we take out this low of 1928.29. That's about 70 handles under where we closed. The rule doesn't stop a drop in the meantime, and frankly a lot of DeMarc's stuff hasn't been working that well on the rally. Because it hasn't been working too well, I don't know if I should trust the combo sell on the half-day chart, the sequential sell on the third of a day chart, or the combo sell on the 78-minute chart. But I do know that today's high happened to be at a very inopportune price for the bulls because it was right at the resistance formed by the prior two highs. When you create a trend line, this formation has somewhat of a megaphone-like look. And if one believes in again angles, we have three of them all coming together right at the high. So for tomorrow, best guess is that we have a gap outside of today's range. We have a slightly lower mejt target and a lot of resistance at the high, all of which indicate the gap should be down. A gap down would create an island reversal at the top with strong resistance at the high. It could lead to far more than just the minimum drop indicated by mejt. If the call is wrong, it should be obvious at the open, because if it's wrong, we should have a gap over today's high. And that's today's call.